So here's something interesting. I'm in Dubai, the heart of the UAE, and a country that is a key member of the Gulf Cooperation countries, the GCC. And I want us to engage and discuss a few things that are around the city, the country, and the region. Dubai is the crown jewel of the Emirati progress, and it gives road signs for the future possibility for the entire region. Established in the 18th century as a small fishing village, Dubai grew into a regional trading hub in the early 20th century, and it grew even more rapidly in the late 20th and 21st centuries with a focus on tourism, financial services, and luxury. Dubai is modern and OTT. It has the second most five-star hotels in the world and boasts the tallest building in the world, the Burj Khalifa, which is 828 meters tall. The city itself is situated on the Eastern Arabian Peninsula, on the coast of the Persian Gulf. Dubai is not just tourism. Although 17 million international overnight visitors over the course of a year in 2023 came into this place. This was according to the latest data published by Dubai Department of Economy and Tourism. Dubai is also a major global transport hub and an economic goods player where passengers and cargo are concerned. Dubai has been a center of all things UAE for regional and international trade since the early 20th century. And its economy relies on revenues from trade, tourism, aviation, real estate, and financial services. But surprisingly, even though it has oil production contributes less than 1% of this Emirates GDP in 2018. Don't get me wrong, oil revenue helped accelerate the development of the city, which was already a major mercantile hub in the olden times. But it was the country's leadership strategy and its adaptability and motivation to get off from the over-reliance of oil money that made it what it is today. The city has a population of around 3.6 million people as of 2022, with a population density of 762 people per square kilometer. Estimates put the overall expatriate population in Dubai, people not from here but who live here, at around 75% of the entire population of the city, which is roughly around 2.72 million people. But this video, as the title suggests, isn't about Dubai. It's about the economic, political, and diplomatic ties, strategies, and moves that this city, the UAE, and the GCC are crafting where Africa is concerned, and how that plays into the security and prosperity of the region. Let's get into it. In 2023, the economic and diplomatic ties between the UAE and Africa reached their peak, marked by Abu Dhabi's commitment to invest $4.5 billion in the continent's clean energy. With a total of $60 billion committed from 2012 to 2022, the Emirates are the fourth largest investor in Africa over the last decade, behind China, Europe, and the United States. The UAE remains in pole position for Gulf investors in Africa, followed by Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Kuwait. The attraction of Africa for the Emiratis is coupled with a growing interest of African entrepreneurs in the Gulf state, where more than 21,000 companies from the continent are already established right here. Africa is quickly becoming one of the UAE's most significant markets. The UAE is and has been for some time now been actively making concerted effort to break into the continent's growth potential markets. For instance, Africa has been identified as one of Dubai's most potential economic partners for the next coming years by Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, the Vice President and Prime Minister of the United Arab Emirates and the ruler of Dubai. Companies based here in GCC countries announced 73 FDI projects into Africa worth more than $53 billion last year, according to the latest data from FDI markets. Just for context, the GCC brings together 6 Arab nations: Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. Its very existence is to further political and economic integration amongst these countries, and also to co-invest globally where it makes sovereign and collective sense to do so. Interestingly, the only year GCC investors announced more FDI capital expenditure into the African continent than in 2023 was in 2022, where they pledged $60 billion across 83 projects. So in just 2 years, the Gulf Cooperation companies have pledged to pump more than $100 billion into African projects. More than 90% of these FDI projects came from the big boys in the group, the UAE and Saudi Arabia. Most notably, a lot of this funding is going into energy, namely into hydrogen and other renewable energy projects. Of particular interest is the relationship between South Africa and the UAE. It goes back 30 years to the start of the democratic period in South Africa. Diplomatic relations between South Africa and the UAE began when Sheikh Hamdan bin Zayed Al Nahyan visited South Africa in 1994 for the inauguration of President Nelson Mandela. The first UAE ambassador followed soon after that and began formal work from the 12th of November 1995. Economic ties between South Africa and the UAE have been particularly strong, with the UAE serving as an important trade and investment partner for South Africa in the Middle East. South Africa is one of the largest trading partners of the UAE in Africa, with bilateral trade between the two countries valued at over $3 billion way back in 2013 even. By 2021, South Africa had exported $4.4 billion to the UAE, with most significant exports being in gold, diamonds, and ferrous alloys. With the UAE exporting $2.4 billion to South Africa, mostly consisting of petroleum products and copper. The UAE is one of South Africa's more lucrative markets in the Arabian Gulf, and current statistics show that trade between South Africa and the UAE, especially in gold exports from South Africa, is gaining momentum. But apart from gold, South Africa is also a major exporter of steel to the UAE. And the South African construction, consulting and services sectors also play a good role in the rapid development of this very country, the UAE. UAE exports to South Africa are oil-related products, machinery, transportation equipment, consumer electronics, home appliances, ball bearings, computer accessories, and textiles. In the reverse direction, major South African exports to the UAE comprise of base metals and alloy products, steel for both construction and general engineering, machinery, electronics, equipment, minerals, defense equipment, chemicals, plastic goods, and foodstuffs. At present, South Africa is the UAE's 35th largest trade partner. Accelerated total trade momentum between the two countries and a total of 14 FDI projects from the UAE were recorded, presenting almost 3 billion rands in value. A recent important development was the takeover of Al Noor Hospital Group by Mediclinic of South Africa in 2016. This made Mediclinic International become one of the largest private healthcare companies in the UAE, providing about 55% of total private healthcare in the UAE. Mediclinic now operates 5 hospitals and 38 clinics with more than 600 inpatient beds in the UAE. In fact, South African construction, hospitality, consultancy, and service-based sectors are playing a big role in the rapid development of the UAE. And it is estimated that more than 100 South African companies operate in the UAE, while others maintain presence in this region. For instance, South African brands such as Mediclinic, Mug & Bean, Nando's, Galitos, Standard Bank, Nedbank, Barloworld, Denel, Dimension Data, and South African Airways are familiar names in the UAE. On one of my many strolls around town, I even bumped into a Tasha's. That was super interesting. Between 60,000 and 80,000 South African expatriates call this desert country a home, and they are active in a variety of fields and industries. Many work in medical, financial, teaching fields, military, and even aviation. Notably and positively so are the consistently rising trade numbers of 44 billion rand between South Africa and the UAE, with exports to the UAE rising from 6 billion rand in 2011 to about 25 billion rand in 2018. The fact that South Africa continues to have a trade surplus of 6.4 billion rand over the UAE indicates a promising trend for the future. The Middle East holds a special attraction for South African businessmen and women because of its huge domestic market, and also it stands as a connecting point to bigger markets and beyond. With increased trade activity between the two countries, more and more South Africans are realizing the immense potential of the UAE market, not only as a regional hub of trade and commerce, but also as one of the biggest re-export centers in the Middle East. The country's booming economy, excellent infrastructure facilities, and strategic location are just some of the reasons and main incentives that are attracting an increasing number of South Africans to come work and do business here. Tax-free income and reliable and efficient banking systems also play a part. In addition to the direct trade, there is heightened interest from UAE businesses that are interested in investing in commercial and residential properties, especially in Cape Town. The cross-investment culture between South Africa and the UAE is gaining serious momentum, and it must be encouraged. About 17 FDI projects were recorded as investments into South Africa from the UAE, representing a total capital investment of 600 million dirhams, 3 billion rand. South Africa is also a significant investor in the UAE. 27 FDI projects from South Africa to the UAE were recorded, representing a total capital investment of 1 billion dirhams, or 5 billion rand. For the longest time, and currently as it stands, South Africa plays a sideline role in the agricultural markets of the GCC. For example, Saudi Arabia imported $29 billion worth of agri-products in 2022, around R500 billion worth, according to data from TradeMap. South Africa was one of the smallest exporters, accounting for a mere 1% of the Saudi Arabian imports. South Africa also had a 2% share and was the 16th largest supplier here. Qatar imported $3.9 billion worth of agri-products in 2022. But here South Africa also plays a small role, ranked 10th on the list of suppliers to Qatar, with a mere 2% share of Qatar's agri-products market. If we as South Africa can become more competitive and consequential as a trading partner in the agri-space in the UAE and the GCC, focusing a little bit more can actually lead to South Africa becoming a massive player within the space. Still talking about agriculture. In order to future-proof the food security of the GCC, the Emiratis and the Saudis are going around Africa and they are buying up strategic farmland that can be worked and the produce can be exported right here to the States to ensure that there is enough food for the growing populations in these connected desert countries. GCC nations have also invested in farmlands across Africa in a bid to reduce the reliance on import of foodstuffs. Up to 20 million hectares of farmland, valued at up to $35 billion, has been reportedly sold to foreign purchasers in the GCC. This is according to International Food Policy Research Institute. A couple of the biggest transactions were the UAE purchasing 400,000 hectares in Sudan and Saudi Arabia purchasing 500,000 hectares in Tanzania. Kenya gave up 40,000 hectares of land to Qatar in a return for $2.5 billion in loans. Those very said loans allowed Kenya to construct a second deep water port. Fertile farmland may be purchased for as little as $3 per hectare in some parts of Africa, or even for nothing, as communities in rural areas are begging for investors to come in and make that land productive. But things haven't always just been rosy between the UAE and Africa. As an example, the relationship between South Africa and the United Arab Emirates has faced some difficulties recently. Atul and Rajesh Gupta, two wanted fugitives from South Africa, were apprehended right here in the United Arab Emirates in 2022 after South Africa sent an Interpol red alert, accusing them of money laundering and fraud. They were also big players in state capture. On technicality, the UAE controversially freed the Gupta family, with both governments holding each other accountable for the unsuccessful extradition attempt. This back and forth around the Guptas was a major diplomatic issue as a result between the two nations, with Africa predicted to emerge as one of the leading markets in the coming years for a wide range of consumer and capital and investment goods. Several initiatives are bound to further focus on the growing importance of the lucrative African and South African markets. As Africa comes under focus, several nations like China, India and Brazil are already jostling for positions to make the best of the many business and investment opportunities that the continent has to offer. Truly, Africa is now undoubtedly the market of tomorrow. Thank you for watching this video right to the end. Check out one of the other videos here or here, and maybe you'll find that just as interesting as this one. Cheers.